All right. Sci-Fi Express Lane, Jeff Carroll doing my thing. All right. Today's topic is like the weird and the absurd in stories. I am now engaged in writing an essay or just even some stories that are weird and absurd. And as a Black science fiction writer, Black fan of science fiction, this is kind of an area that is really unexplored. When I'm thinking about stories like this, I'm not really thinking, of course you got The Blob, that's probably one of my main ones, but when it comes to diversity in these stories, it's really lacking, So let me first say, before I get started, like, subscribe, share, and comment. I need the likes up. Even if you don't agree with me, I need you to be able to appreciate just the fact that we're talking about something that's different, something that you don't really see on the internet, okay? And then subscribe because, whether you agree with me or not, we're going to have conversation. And conversation is amazing, and I'm trying to keep it pumped up, short and brief. We go 15 minutes, and that's it. And share is just spread the word. Spread the good word. We need these conversations, and we need more people talking about them. So you can always make a comment, and I really like people to make comments after the video because I don't put up all of the points that I'm going to make. So after you watch the video, then you know if I said something or if I didn't. Many times I'm debating with people, and I gotta be like, man, watch the video. We so quick to jump on stuff. It's crazy. So anyway, let me get back to the weird and absurd. First of all, it's really broad when it comes to the mainstream, what's weird and absurd. But when it comes to Black people and people of color, it's very conservative. So the weird and absurd is like The Blob, right? Maybe even The Thing, right? Maybe even, what's another good example? Men in Black, right? Those things can be the weird and absurd, but, it is not a vampire. It is not the Frankenstein. It's not a zombie. Those things are explained in your story. When we're talking about the weird and absurd, we're talking about things that fall in the realms of science fiction, but they're more fictional, fantastic. They're scientific by, I guess, design, or scientific by the storytelling. I mean, they're told like a regular science fiction story, but they don't follow any type of guidelines, right? So it's not something that you scientifically explain. Maybe it's something that scientists can't find out, can't figure out, and can't be explained by science. Maybe that's a better way, because it doesn't feel like fantasy. Like Men in Black almost doesn't try to figure things out. Men in Black leaves things in the realm of don't even ask the question. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. The dude is turning into a giant roach, and he's growing to enormous proportions. In science fiction, you would have to figure that out. You'd have to explain that. How do they fly from planet to planet? Do they breathe in space? Do they how do you make fire in space? You need to figure that out. And if you leave it alone, then people are going to fault you and call you Star Wars and tell you it's fantasy. So leaving the realms of science, right? But then the other thing is, leaving the realm of normality because you got to go into the weird. And this is a whole genre in, science fiction. And why is it considered science fiction when science can't explain it, right? What makes something weird? Well, the definition of weird, or let me just say how I explain it, how we understand it, is different, not normal, out of the mainstream. Those are ways that as weird is described. So when we're talking about something that's weird science fictionally, then it's something that is really different from the norm. Almost Valerian could be considered weird, but everything else about it was normal. So make the focal point the weird and everything else about it being normal. But the main thing is something weird happened. So like we leave the blob as a weird, unexplainable thing, but something like Life, which was a space blob, was not so much the weird and the absurd. It was really just a science fiction story. So it's really a thin line. I'm going to research this and I'm going to come back and revisit it. But I think maybe because black people were considered weird or out of the norm, or many of the things that we believed were unexplainable to science, maybe that's the reason. I don't know, but I do know that black people now are getting into the weird and absurd, or just not this specifically the weird and absurd, but more of the other sub-genres of science fiction. And I don't really think I've seen or heard a black science fiction writer going into the weird and absurd. Maybe, what's his name, Gary Phillips, my man, or maybe Michael Forsythe out of South Carolina. He does experiment with some really different scenarios, but something that I have never wrote a story in, because I'm probably, I like to call myself the Hotep of the black science fiction communities. Many times what I end up doing with my stories is having to explain something that the Lovecraftians have corrupted against black people, so that's kind of what I'm like, no, mummies aren't Imhotep, that's the Lovecraftian energy that made mummies Hotep. Or, no, dead people aren't bad, they're our ancestors. That's that Lovecraftian energy that corrupted everything black, made it, even the word black isn't negative, dark isn't bad, we got to change all of that. So I'm one of those writers that kind of restates things and corrects some of the racism in the stories that we already have in science fiction. So that's me as a science fiction writer. And I'm not finished doing that, but kind of I've done that a couple of times. So now I'm looking to expand. There are other science fiction writers that may have stepped out of the paranormal and stepped into the more hardcore science. Maybe they've stepped out of science. They started in Sword and Soul, and now they want to step into the more of the hardcore scientific what ifs. And, maybe there was an alternative history, right? And that's still science fiction, but they want to write something that's more. So as we want to write about zombies, we want to write about werewolves. We're just doing the space funk science fiction thing. And I'm talking from the black science fiction community outward, right? So maybe we want to write about, things that we didn't write about. We just started to have a space funk anthology. When I first got into it, I was like, yo, where's the Black Star Wars? Where's the Black Star Treks, you know? And they weren't really places to be found. Now we're having those things. So writing about the weird and absurd is a natural progression, which is a good thing. So I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking, you know, like Tremors, that's weird. Not scientifically explained. I don't know if I would classify Sharknado as weird and absurd, but certainly absurd. Sharks in flying, you know, they tried to explain it in the first one to make it a little bit more realistic, if it ever was. But as the sequels continued, it started to just run itself in the ground. But I think it definitely falls into the absurd category. We don't really see too many weird, you know, and absurd. Cocaine Bear did happen. It was you know, cocaine did fall out of a plane, or a bear did ingest some cocaine. So that's not so much weird as the telling of the story, the way they manifested. So they told it in an absurd, extreme way. So yeah, that definitely falls in there. But other than that, we don't even really, weird and absurd stories are more of a literary genre than the ones you see in television and film, because things are so weird that it's really hard to push on and keep going. That, you know, it's a one out idea. So I'm gonna continue reading up on the weird and absurd and report back to you guys, you know, in a couple of weeks after I start doing my research and writing my essay on it. But yeah, it's really, that's weird right there, that we don't have too much representation in this subcategory of science fiction. But, you know, that's not the only thing we don't have representation in, you know. So we don't represent in every subgenre, you know, and we don't really represent in science fiction in general, you know what I'm saying? We new to this whole thing, although we've been around as writers in terms of the bum rush of black science fiction writers in all of these subgenres is just starting to happen. I still don't know maybe 3 black natural disaster stories, and you know, we've seen them all over the place. So yeah, that's a genre. Post-apocalypse, we may not have many. You know, I've seen a couple, but you know, they might have been love stories, but you know, there's a lot of mainstream post-apocalyptic stories. So there's still some uncharted territory, or some territory that hasn't really been fully flushed out. I think we wrote about vampires and zombies, I mean, and werewolves, but I don't think we got too deep into zombies. So anyway, that's where I'm at for this. Enjoy and you know, think about it. If you can think, you know, how about this be a challenge? If you can think about some weird and absurd stories, let me know. I mean, my cyberpunk stories as Doctor might be absurd, but it's not that weird, you know. And I don't think it falls into the category of weird. I'm gonna post some weird stories, and you see what the mainstream is doing, talking foxes and all types of weird things. You understand? All right, so we're out of here. What was that last Disney movie? The Beyond the Space story. But that's a weird story. All right? But other than that, it's new to the black people, black community. All right, peace. Talk to you later. Like, subscribe, share, and comment. Sci-Fi Express Lane, Jeff Carroll.